Welcome to the 7 Keys to Freedom for Women. I'm the Freedom Facilitator, as you know, and I distilled these 7 keys after reviewing my experience of setting myself free, taking big leaps, and how did all of that happen? What really made a difference for me? How was I able to live my authentic life, be my authentic self after being so trapped, even brainwashed? Well, these are the keys that came out of it, and they have helped not only me, but many other women. And let's get into the nitty gritty and the nuts and bolts of freedom. Now, this video is for you if you long for more freedom in your life and in yourself, and to be your authentic self and live your authentic life. It's for you if you feel that something is emerging and won't be ignored. It's for you if you feel that you're reaching a turning point in your life and something's got to give. It's for you if you identify with this idea of being a bird trapped in a gilded cage with a beautiful looking life, and yet something does not feel right on the inside. That was me. It's for you if you care deeply about freedom for other women and want to be even more of a leader, even more capable and more connected in that field of helping women to be free. That's me too. Now, this is created as a workshop, and you might want to have a notebook to jot down some notes. You might want to share with someone else what you discover from this workshop, or you might just want to light a candle, close your eyes, and let it wash over you. Totally up to you, and I'm so glad you're here. Here we go.
So, who am I to teach the 7 keys to freedom for women? How have I earned my seat on the freedom bus? Well, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story. Some of it you already know. You might hear something you didn't hear before. And I kind of think of it as 3 leaps. And if you can mute Sheila, that'd be cool. Um, I have also called this workshop Take the Leap and Set Yourself Free, because I've noticed that there were several leaps in my life that I took that, happened after a turning point, and then I did make some kind of a major change. So, 3 leaps that I will talk about. The first one happened in 2001. I took it. It didn't just happen. I took it. Many of you know that I was born and raised and lived in a secret religious cult for my whole life until that date in 2001. So I didn't choose a cult. I didn't join a group. I came out of the womb and I was in it because my parents were in it, my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. That was my world. And I was taught from the earliest age that this was the greatest privilege that I could have as a human being on this earth, was to be in this religion, which was called the light. It still is. So I was a spiritual seeker and I was very engaged in it. I was on this journey to perfection and attainment that they taught us. And I wanted to be like a really fine person, with great character. And I needed to be. And that was lovely. I married a man who, inside that religion, that's what we were encouraged and pushed to do. We had religious meetings in our home for adult friends and also for kids. We hosted what was called the friendship meeting. So there was a lot, I was really like in the center of this community. My grandparents had been some of the first people to convert to this religion when it came over from London. So I was very much in the center. So it was a really deep realization for me to realize that the whole thing was false and a construct of these three British people in the late 1920s, and that I was living my life on a false paradigm. Kind of like walking, realizing that all this time I thought I was walking right side up, but I was really walking upside down on the ceiling, and it was wrong. So it took some years to realize this and to realize that it was abusive. And I had a turning point. The turning point was one afternoon in 1999 when my husband decided that he was going to beat my son with a belt. And my son had already left this religion. So I think he wanted to punish him for that. But, this was a 17-year-old young man. And when my husband went into the bedroom with the belt, which he had not done for years, though the cult did teach us to hit our kids, uh, my son pulled out a baseball bat, and suddenly there was this huge scuffle, this fight going on in the room, and screaming and swearing. And this was a shock to me. I had never experienced anything like this in my home. It was scary, actually, that these men were going to really hurt each other. It was scary too because I was powerless to stop it. I was in the bathroom on the floor with the door closed, trying not to hear it, but I couldn't even go in the room and say, "Hey guys, break it up." I couldn't do it. I was frozen. Fight or flight or freeze. Well, I was in freeze. All I could do was cry to whoever I was praying for, "Please make it stop, make it stop." So that was a turning point for me because I realized that this light thing wasn't working, that the reason that my husband was going to beat my son with a belt was because of the phone conversation with the man in charge of the religion. So the whole thing was just crumbling. It still took me another 2 years to actually wake up and have the courage to walk away and leave that cult, leave that religion. I didn't even recognize it as a cult yet then, but I knew I had to leave. So I did do that. And 2 weeks before, I actually left my marriage as well, because I knew that my husband was just completely tied to this religion and to whatever this guy Joe in charge was saying. And it's like my body dried up. I couldn't do it anymore. And I just had to get out of there. It was like for my sanity, and I just knew it. So it was scary though, because I thought I was going to be married to him till I croaked, and I thought I was going to be in that religion till I croaked, and I thought I was going to be in that pretty colonial house with the garden till I croaked, maybe. But I walked away from both of those 2 weeks apart, and I started a brand new life on a brand new paradigm. I no longer was one of these special people in the light. I was just a regular bozo walking the face of the earth. That was incredible. It was so freeing. I remember looking up at the stars one night in New Rochelle, New York, and saying, "Wow, I am just one of everybody. That is so awesome. I'm just a regular person. I could do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want to go. I can be bad. I mean, I'm just a regular person." So that was my first leap of freedom. And was it easy after that? No, but I did it. I did it. And I don't look back. Don't want to go back. The second leap was 14 years later. I lived in New York City. I had created a life for myself in New York City. I lived in Brooklyn. I was in college and pursuing a degree in gender, sexuality, and race studies, which is not something that I ever could have done when I was in the cult. I did it as a late bloomer. Always wanted to go to college, was always like a smart kid in school, but they stopped me. So I was doing that, like all of this. I had created this life, and yet I had hit a wall and had hit some burnout with all of it. Anybody who's lived in New York City understands the risk of extreme burnout in that city, especially if you don't have a lot of money. But anyway, that's what was happening to me. And one morning I woke up, but I hadn't made any decisions. I was just like staggering along, trying not to drop my courses. One morning I walked into the kitchen in my little apartment, the kitchen right next to my bed, and I saw a baby rat running across the sink. Okay, so that told me that I had a family of rats because we had been seeing what I thought was mice droppings for months. And thought that mice were behind the stove. But it turned out I had a family of rats in my kitchen. And the very next morning, my roommate saw a second one. So to me, this was, I mean, no, I didn't want to live with rats in the next room from my bed. And it was a sign. What are you going to do, Justy? You're going to keep living here with the rats? You've got to go. And then I thought, well, where am I going to go? Am I going to move someplace else in New York City where they also have rats? Because I saw them in the subway every day. Um, so I tapped in and I realized I wanted to go to California where I had already taken a wonderful, like New Year's retreat. And I wanted to sign up for this educational coaching program for desire coaching and orgasmic meditation coaching. So that was a big risk because I didn't have a home there. I didn't have a job there. I didn't have very much money. I was living on college tuition aid. But I somehow, my soul knew, do it. Throw your hat over the fence and use your community out there to make it stick. I had a couple of communities, so I started, reaching out. And I did do that. I moved to San Francisco, California. I asked my roommate if she wanted the apartment. She said yes. She later locked me out of it, mind you, and I lost almost all of my possessions. But that was okay. I had made this jump. It was what my soul wanted, and it was a call for freedom because the whole college degree thing and the whole living in New York City and having to make ends meet thing was another trap for me. And I'm going to say that the second leap was easier by far than the first. I had developed a level of trust that I was going to be okay somehow, even though I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So, I've been in California now. I was for about 8 years with a break where I tried New York City again. I also tried London and I also tried Paris. I tried a couple of other places, tried San Francisco, and I ended out tapping into my intuition again and saying, come back to San Francisco. So I was there for about 6 years. Now, what was wrong with that? That all went well for a while. As I say, for a while, all went well. But Justy hit another one of her breaking points. I seem to get to these points where I've just like had it up to here. And I think it's because I know that there must be something better and that there must be a way that I can live my authentic life, that this is not it. And I remember the day I realized it. There were a couple of days. The first a glimmer of realization was when I got a new boss, and I could tell that he was going to be mean and that I wasn't going to feel safe with him. I saw when I looked in his eyes, I was like, oh boy. And my boss before that, I had really liked. Now, the job that I was in I had a well-paying job, which was allowing me to live in high rent San Francisco. And I was selling gym memberships for Crunch Fitness. I wasn't into gyms. I was long over gyms, but I really needed a job, and this was my best job. So, I might still be there if my old boss were there because he was a sweetheart. And it was not in alignment with who I am because I had sales goals. It was mostly about physical appearance. It was 10 to 12-hour days, not my choice. That was what I had to do. Many hours in front of the computer trying to drum up business when it was slow. And it was not in alignment with me, but I made the best of it. You know how you settle? Put in the chat box. Have you ever settled because you felt like you didn't have a choice? Give me a yes or even an example of it in the chat box. Or just give me a thumbs up. I was settling. I was settling. When I took the job, I thought, well, maybe I could do this for a year. They wanted me to be general manager. I was in my head, I don't know about that. But, less than a year went by. This was less than 6 months in, and I started to get a glimmering. I don't think this is going to be safe with this man. So a couple months later, I realized that it wasn't, that he did not have my back, that he was trouble. And I realized when I was doing like a practice coaching with a friend, I was being coached. And I said, I can't be teaching freedom to women. I can't be coaching women on how to get free. I am trapped. I am stuck in a trap. And I have to be authentic and get myself out of this if I'm going to really teach this, because I was working on a coaching program to teach this, right? And it was a feeling of desperation. And I recognized that feeling of desperation. It was the bird in the gilded cage syndrome because it looked good. And I had enough money to take dance classes, which I loved, but that still wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough because how I was living was I was on the treadmill and I was in the patriarchal structure and the capitalist structure that was just running my ass. Um, and all I could do was recover from it every week. So I said, let me go down to Costa Rica and see what my friend has been telling me for these years that I would love it down here. Let me take that little trip and just, get some perspective. And who knows, maybe there's a chance I could move down there. So I did. That was November of last year. I had a lovely week, not actually in the same town where I am now. We went to Nasara on the Pacific coast, and I fell in love with Costa Rica. And the turning point moment about that was before I even got to Costa Rica. I was in the Uber going from my apartment to San Francisco airport, and this thought just came on me so hard. Wow. What if you never had to go back there? What if you never had to come back? Wow, how awesome. And then I had that again when I was sitting in the pool with my friend in Costa Rica. What if I didn't have to go back? But I couldn't come up with with a solution to how I could just walk away from all that and live. So, but I heard it, that voice. And I said, I realized that I was going to be eligible to get some retirement income in 6 months. And I said to myself, hey, Justy, can you work for Mr. E for 6 months and then hightail it out of there? Yes, I can. I can work for Mr. E for 6 months. I can make an escape plan. I can learn what it takes to live in Costa Rica. I can get a side hustle for online income. I can do this. I can do this. And I can sock away as much money as I can from the commissions from the gym memberships. So that was leap number 3. And yes, I did actually do it. In the end of April, I booked a ticket to a gold and silver convention, which was my side hustle, because that was once that ticket was booked, that airfare and that reservation at the conference, I had thrown my hat over the fence and I was going somewhere. But even further, I really needed to book the ticket to Costa Rica, and I did that too. Um, so, once you book those airfare tickets, you've really thrown your hat over the fence. And then I quit my job and they tried to get me to stay. They offered me general manager, la la la. Nope. No, I had made the decision. I had heard the song playing. In Crunch, they have something called Throwback Thursdays where they play oldies songs. So they had this 90s song playing, and I would hear it usually like each Thursday, right? It's should I stay or should I go now? If I go, there will be trouble. If I stay, it will be double. So I heard that. I was like, yeah, Justy, should I stay or should I go? I'm gonna go. I just, that decision was not as hard as the first one. And I also knew I was going to do it smarter than the second one. I wasn't going to be stone cold broke when I hit the streets of Costa Rica. I was going to make it a little easier for myself. But I also knew that there was going to be a community here. I was already on the WhatsApp group for Puerto Viejo. I knew that people would help me find an apartment, or a cottage, and I would find the women's circles and I wouldn't be alone. So those are my 3 leaps. 3 jumps for joy. I don't look back on any of them, though I do sometimes pine for New York City, kind of like my old lover that I miss, but I know that it's not a healthy lover for me. I've gone back and checked it out again. I'm like, no, just watch movies about New York and that'll be good enough for you. So I have a question for you. Thanks for listening to my story, my Freedom Bus story. And if you want to you don't have to even write any of this in the chat, but When have you experienced a turning point in your life? And maybe it's more than one. And what was a big leap that you took? You know, because the turning point could be the precursor to the leap. That moment, like, ooh, something's got to change. So if you want to put it in the chat, I'm going to open up the chat here. Well, I don't see anything in the chat, but that's okay. I want to get into what are the 7 keys to freedom for women and how have these helped me? How have these helped me? The first, okay, I got one. Fantastic. I got two. Recovering from your eating disorder and quitting the bar. Quitting the bar is taking the leap. Yeah. And recovering from an eating disorder is a major accomplishment. I've actually done it myself. It's part of my story. The first key to the 7 keys for freedom for women is feel. And by that I mean feel what's deep, what's under the surface, what doesn't want to be felt. Maybe those feelings that I have been, quote, stuffing down. Thank you for your leaps, all of you. Thank you. I really appreciate them. It means so much to me. What wants to be felt that's under the surface? You know, they say you got to feel it to heal it. Well, I would say you've got to feel it to free it. If you want to be free, you better get those feelings up and out. So why is feeling so important? There's blocked energy there, and there's blocked power. There's so much power underneath our rage. And we as women are not encouraged to show rage, right? A lot of those feelings are tied to stories such as that which we fear or shame about ourselves. They're all like tangled up with those thoughts that are stopping us in our tracks, actually. That's involved with not accepting parts of ourselves. That anger, that rage, that shame, that fear, those what could be called our shadow. And of course, once we up and out those, there is power there for us. And we can see who we are without all that stuff behind all of that. What are some effects? This was really important for me to start to realize because I don't want to go back to this. Effects of suppressed feelings. I had chronic illness. I had gut pain. I had migraine headaches from the age of 15, which were not diagnosed. I had skin lesions, which I heard were stress related. I had sugar and caffeine addiction, and I drank alcoholically once a week. I think that I was an alcoholic without a heavy drinker, but I really looked forward to those drinks. And all of that kept my feelings suppressed and caused me illnesses. I developed an eating disorder. I just mentioned that. Binging and starving. I had depression, and I've heard that anger turned inward is depression for a lot of people. I shut down my sex and my intimacy with my husband. I had a disconnected marriage. I did not tell my husband how I felt very much. And that's because he couldn't accept it. He couldn't take it. It was a disaster. So, you know, that gets into my next point about why wouldn't I feel my feelings, right? It makes perfect sense to feel your feelings and not just be suppressing them and stuffing them down, right? But I had training since early childhood. I mentioned to you that in the light, this religion, that we were taught to spank our children. Well, I was spanked myself from early childhood, and I was spanked for crying. And when I was a teen, if I cried when I was 14 at the dinner table, I was sent to my room, go cry in your room and come out when you're cheerful. So I learned being the motivated spiritual person that I was, and I didn't want to feel shame, I learned to control those feelings. I did not cry. To this day, crying is challenging for me. I'm happy when I get like 3 little tears in my left eye. I'm like, oh, that feels so good to be able to cry. Crying, it was really suppressed. And my ex-husband, when we were married, if I would start to even sound like I was going to cry, he'd be like, "You're upset. I can't talk to you." And either he would leave the room or he would just, be unresponsive. So, I learned. And then aside from the familial or religious conditioning, there's also societal conditioning. As I mentioned, what's acceptable for women? Rage is not acceptable. It's ugly. Nobody wants to see that in the workplace or at home or in a restaurant. Uh, Deep sorrow, grief, sobbing, crying, no way. It's not acceptable. Even if somebody doesn't think it's morally wrong, they don't want any part of it. Like, pull yourself together and do this professionally, right? Those are a couple of the examples. And of course, fear. We don't want to see you being paranoidally afraid. We want you to be confident. So all of that. So what do? I override it. I suppress it. I act like everything is good, including to myself. Uh, so how do we get these feelings uncovered? This was a very important thing for me. Anxiety, thank you, which to me an aspect of fear. Anxiety is kind of like a fast-paced fear. Um, yeah. How do you uncover and release these feelings? Some of them may be obvious, but some of them are very hidden, very hidden. So one of the first things that started to work for me was that I had a chance to learn yoga as part of my fitness career because I used to teach fitness, and I got a chance to learn a yoga certification. And in there, they taught us that the triangle pose, this is an example, was a heart opening pose, and that I should stay in that pose and feel what came up in my heart. And maybe I might feel grief or sadness. Maybe I might feel tenderness. Maybe I might feel compassion. So I did feel that. I felt something happening, like those little tears that I talked about. I felt that sometimes. I was like, oh, yeah, there's feelings that want to come up if I'm quiet. And then another one, I've shared this before, was my kickboxing dojo. Because in my teaching, I also taught kickboxing, and I decided to go to a dojo so I could do more kickboxing and more punching and use like a bag. So the teacher gave us a rubber man bust and told us to punch the heck out of that rubber man. And she said, just imagine it's your boyfriend or your husband or your boss that you're really mad at. Give it to him. And I said, I'm not mad at any of the men in my life. I'm not mad. This was I think in a couple years before that turning point. But I started to realize as I kept punching that you know what? I really am mad. And it got it out. It got it out. It started to teach me to release it. And then I learned to start swearing at the top of my lungs the F word in the car. And that was really good. I needed it because in that religion, women did not swear. We did not say those things. And of course, it needed to be said. It needed to be shouted. In later years, I found sensual embodied dance, and we got to choose a song that would express a certain emotion that we wanted to bring out. And I found that by the end of a song that was rageful, where I was stomping around in my stripper heels, I felt bubbles of joy coming up after I danced it out as the dangerous challenger or whatever my role was in my rage. I felt bubbles of joy and fun coming up. So that was years later. This is a continuum, but I would like for you to put in the chat what tool has been helpful to you or tools to access suppressed feelings and bring them up and out. Love to hear that. And while you're writing that, I'm going to go on to key number 2. Key number 1 is one of the longies. They're not all as long as that, but it's a deep one. It's a deep starter. Martial arts, there you go. Key number 2 is share. And by that I mean share your feelings. And I mean we're not just talking heads, right? Share your feelings, and I mean a safe place to share. Those feelings need to get out in the air. Yes, some of them might come out in punching or kicking, but sometimes they're going to come out in talking. And get them out in the air, or they still could be eating us alive. And exposing the dark feelings to another person is so important because it gives us some self-acceptance. It normalizes us. The person says, oh yeah, me too, totally. And they can identify with us. We're not alone. Getting that stage done can give us the confidence for some forward movement, maybe some solutions, not just a stuckness and a clamped inness, but actually some movement. And I want to say that this sharing of feelings could be messy. We may not actually have a perfectly safe, wonderful, receptive community for these feelings when we're in one of these places. I did not. In my religion, I did not have that. Anyone that I shared with, any confidants, women, they could go and they should go to Joe, the guy in charge, and tell him what they heard from me. That was their duty. So there was no anonymity or confidentiality, and that was not a safe place to share. And I knew it. So I had to find somebody to talk to. I did not have therapy because in our religion, we did not do therapy, as you could probably imagine. So what did I do? I started talking to my personal training clients in their homes during the workouts. Now, usually it was always them that confided their emotional traumas and things to me. But this time it was me. I came in, they're doing their sit-ups, and I'm like, hey, I have to tell you something. I was born in a cult and I just left it yesterday. What? And 2 weeks before that, hey, I have to tell you something. I just broke up with my husband and I'm getting my own place. So this was crossing, a boundary of professionalism. We're not supposed to do that. And I did it. And it was all right. These women actually were my friends, and they were safe people to share with, and they were very compassionate, actually. And I think they almost didn't mind listening to my story. It was kind of interesting. But the thing is that I followed my intuition. My intuition said, it's all right. You need to talk to somebody, and it's all right to talk to this person. And I knew it was a bit messy. I knew it wasn't perfect, but I followed it, and I'm glad I did because they really did save me. Um, yeah, there was another person I shared with my child's guitar teacher, which was also inappropriate, but that also helped me. So I'm just telling you, it's okay if it's messy. That should be one of the keys to freedom for women. Maybe that's key number 8. It's okay to be messy. I didn't put that in there, but it is because, we can clean up the mess. Sometimes you have to take the big step. Key number 3, ask. And by that, I mean, ask for guidance. And it may be a different place or way of asking for guidance than it has been in the past. And the reason that this really comes up in the freedom journey is because I noticed that doubt comes up. Like I was so clear about what I wanted to do until I wasn't, until I started to get worried, especially the first time. The first time I was about 49% sure that the light was a construct of 3 British people and it was completely false and I was going to be fine. And I was 51% sure that I could just be a normal person and go about my life as my son had, who had previously left. But that was a balance. That was a balance. I was going to have some doubts about myself, And I had a lot of paranoid fear too that was coming up around that. Uh, so where do you get this? Where do you do this ask? Who am I asking? One thing is the people, finding a new community, right? I found a new community in a 12-step recovery program, which I had never gone to before. And again, it was messy, the shares that I dumped there, but they could hold it and they could keep my confidentiality and they could not give me advice and no, not, yeah, not tell me what to do. That was very important for me. And then there's outside of humans, right? Because I used to pray to somebody up there that was called Master or Determinators. And that was a judgmental God. And I had to let that go. That was a God that would only help you or help me if I was deserving. I had to find a new person to talk to outside of the physical realm. And also, we were never taught to talk to God. You know, that book, Conversations with God? That was not what we did in my religion. We just asked and we said, like, set memorized prayers, or we did begging prayers. Please help me. That was it. So I needed to find somebody. And so I started to experiment with a new conception of what a higher power could be for me. I felt it needed to be female. I tried praying to Mary. Then I had found Ma Durga in yoga. You get the idea. So I needed to ask for guidance. Please show me, not just, begging to be taken out of an emergency, but ask for guidance to be shown. What is my path? What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? So I would love if you would put in key number 2 is sharing. Share. Find a safe place to share, and especially to share those feelings. They're coming up. So asking in the chat, have you had to change? Well, first of all, have you asked for guidance outside of the physical realm? And number 2, have you had to change who and how you ask for guidance outside of the physical realm? Like, did you have to come up with a new, quote, higher power at some point in your journey? And there's another way that I found was meditation, that I learned through this yoga practice, that I could meditate and that was a listening space. And I heard, messages, and I still do that today. And then I learned a little bit later, somebody showed me oracle cards, and some people like that. Sometimes people hear when they're in a ceremony or a ritual, maybe hear some answer in church, but it's listening, right? Listening in that and using that tool that helps you to be open to listen. So then that leads us to key number 4. What do we do with that? What do we do with that? Those downloads, those answers, that guidance? We listen. And by that, I mean not do whatever somebody else says. Being born in a cult and being told that the light was the only true teaching and that the man in charge of the light, everything that he said was true, I got cultivated to always make another person and what they told me my boss, my counselor, my guidance. And, I lost touch with my own inner guidance and I lost touch with my own confidence. Even if I heard that intuition, if it didn't agree with what they told me, for example, I knew I really wanted to go to college. I was a very avid student. I was hungry for learning. I wanted a career. They told me, you can't go to college. You just get a job as a secretary. So that didn't agree with my soul, but I did it anyway. It didn't even agree with my intuition. My intuition was, I'll be fine if I go to college. But, I also didn't have the wherewithal, but it's just an example of don't listen to whatever they say. There's a saying called, I think it might be from the Bible, the still small voice of conscience. And I might reframe that to say, the still small voice of intuition. In the woman's heroine's journey, and in this journey on the Freedom Bus, such an important tool and key really is listening to intuition. So it's starting to cultivate even in these earlier phases of the keys, right? And it's not listening is not pros and cons, right? It's not, oh, these are all the pros to me taking this job. These are all the cons. Yeah, we can do that. But that's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about that gut feeling. It may be in the heart, it may be in the belly, it may be in the sec chakra, wherever our body tells us that we know. Like, does it give me a stomach ache and make my stomach tight? Or do I feel, oh, thank God, yes, yes. Our body knows. So then, of course, we can do a breath journey where we listen. We can do, we can have a vision where we see, and that could be listening. And then what do we do with that? What do we do with that? That's the next question. But I would like to ask you, how have you mostly like gotten your intuition from? Do you get it from meditation? Do you get it from like walking in nature? Do you get it from when somebody says something and then it sends chills up your spine? Like, how do you, what are some one or two of your favorite ways to get your intuition and to know that that is your inner knower? Very important. Very important to notice that, remember it, and use it again. Use it again. Don't ignore it. Those chills that run up and down your legs and arms, that's something. Your body knows something. That tight stomach that walks around on that job, that is something. Okay. I am going to go on. Oh, there's something. I think there's something. Okay. I'm going to go on. This is might be my favorite key. Key number 5, trust. We're not going to take those leaps if we don't have just enough trust to take it. And we're not going to stick the landing if we don't have enough trust to keep on going forward on that path or through that jungle. How can I trust myself? I just told you how conditioned I was not to trust myself. And that makes me sad now looking back, really, because I had a lot of wisdom even as a child. But how can I trust myself? And I want to say also, I didn't trust the universe. I didn't trust God. I didn't trust life. Why? Because I had been taught that I would be punished for everything I did wrong. So I thought I was being punished. It didn't feel safe. I didn't feel that I could win. It was too hard. Winning was too hard. So for me, and I went through this for years after leaving that cult, years, and it still pops up every now and then that I felt like life was a catch-22. Damned if I do and damned if I don't. It's a no-win situation. I have to do this, but I can't do it. I can't do this, but I have to do it. So what do you want me to do? Came up not that long ago, and I recognized it because I don't usually feel that way. But that is called being angry at God, really. I mean, if you just want to put it in a nutshell, and feeling like life isn't fair. It's a victim mentality, actually. So, have you ever felt like life is a catch-22 and you just it's a no-win? You could put a yes or a no in the chat. You may not have felt that. I think it's healthy to not feel that. Um, Another one is I don't really feel like anything or anyone has my back. So how do we get past this stuff? You know, how do I learn to trust myself? Well, I find that in both the case of trusting myself and trusting life, trust is built in small steps, baby steps. To trust myself, I need to see myself doing trustworthy actions. For me, that I found myself doing trustworthy actions when I was able to do yoga every day for a year. I was like, I said I was going to go on the yoga mat and I went on it. I felt like I could trust myself. I was true to my word. I felt it. I experienced it when I joined my food recovery program and agreed to weigh and measure all my food 3 times a day and eat off this list. And I was doing it. I had so much more, not only respect for myself, but trust that I could be true to my word. And I could take care of myself, that I wasn't going to destroy myself or sabotage myself, at least in that area. And I could grow that. So those are some baby steps. Um, Another one, I learned this from Claire Zammit, who teaches feminine power. She teaches to learn to trust yourself, you need to resource yourself. And I really like this. What does that mean to resource myself? It means to look back and say, hey, Justy, when you felt desperate before, what did you do? And, how did you exercise courage to get yourself through a desperate situation? How did you exercise strength? How did you draw from inner strength or perseverance? And I use that. I remember when I was running races, I was into distance running, and we had hills. And when you're in a race, you push yourself. I was pretty darn. I would feel like I was maybe going to hit a wall. And I would remember what my trainer said, and he had said, Justy, my name was Tina at the time, you gave birth to 2 babies. You pushed those babies out. If you could push a baby out and, you can run up that hill. So I was like, yeah, I resourced my courage and my inner strength and determination and used it in the running. Then when I left the light, I was like, wow, you ran those races. You can carry this dresser up these stairs and put it in your new apartment. Just little example. Um, but so, and then the resourcing is not only resourcing your own courage or your own wisdom, whatever it is, be resourcing listening to your intuition. When did I listen to my intuition and it worked out? Or when did I pray and my prayer was answered? When did I lean on my community and they actually supported me? This is why I wanted you to have a notebook, because this can be very valuable information when you're in that dark night of the soul kind of self-doubting times, and resource yourself and resource your experience. If you want, put in the chat or write in your notebook, when did you act courageously? When you had fear and you worked through it with courage, that you would actually like to remember. Part of trusting for me was trusting that that I deserve to have the backing of a higher power, and even that I deserve to have the help of my fellow humans. And this, I think, is still tied to, it's similar to doing trustworthy actions, doing esteemable acts and building my self-esteem. I am worthy. And it's even to this day, it's like a meditation to understand that I am worthy regardless of what I do. I am. I am a human being, and I'm worthy of love. I am worthy of care. I am worthy of respect. I am worthy of having my back, just purely for being a human being, not because of what I did that was worthy. Very important. And I feel that I'm still learning this lesson, because it's so different than what I was taught. And it's different from what a lot of society teaches. It's like, you better deserve it. You don't get to eat unless you work, that kind of thing. Um, so trust, yeah, it is one of my most favorites. Seems like so many layers to develop there, deepening trust. And with more and more trust comes more and more freedom. Freedom, freedom to make mistakes, freedom that even in times of uncertainty, like everything is going to be okay. There's a lot in there. We can go really deep in there. So let's go to number 6 because we're getting close to the end here. Key number 6 is support. Now this harkens back to, when I was talking about ask. So it needs to go even deeper. Building trust does take support. We don't do it alone in our bedroom. Believe in me until I can believe in myself. And I found women who could do that for me. Probably a couple of men too. Um, Someone who sets the example of trusting themselves, so I can do that too. Someone who stands for their own self-worth, who sets their own boundaries, who speaks up, who lives according to their desire or their purpose. Like that example is very important to me in my community. They have that saying that you are the 5 people who are closest to you, so choose wisely. I want to surround myself with people who want to be free and take those steps to be free, to be authentic. And of course, it takes a community, it takes a village, and you might need a new community than the one you had back in the day. You might need to just say goodbye to a whole set of relatives or a whole set of coworkers or a whole set of, anything, a club, a religion, whatever it might be, you might have to say goodbye. This is not easy. This is not easy, but if I keep hanging on, I'm not going to get the support that I need. Am I surrounding myself with naysayers? Am I surrounding myself with doubting Thomases? Am I surrounding myself with people who feel competitive and feel threatened by what I'm doing? Not good. Not if you want to take your leap and be free. So choose wisely and keep curating that. What else did I want to say? Yeah, I want to be around people who trust in the goodness of life and who they also could help me resource myself. When my dark moment, I might not remember that I was courageous. I might not remember that, I went from being stone cold broke and sleeping on the bench in San Francisco airport to supporting myself comfortably and having an apartment and dance classes in San Francisco, which for me was luxurious and saving money. That was a big change. So I might forget that, but they can remember, hey, Justy, you could rebuild. You can rebuild. Um, yeah. So then let's get to key number 7. Leap. Maybe this is the best one. Sometime we have to stop talking about it, thinking about it, dreaming about it, writing about it, and having it make sure that it's going to be perfect and controlling it and planning it and just actually take the leap. We have the gift of desperation and we have tapped into our intuition. We have gotten support with our community. And I love whoever it was that said, maybe there's power in boldness. Take bold action. Now, often this, boldness is associated with the male and, masculine power and the hero's journey. And we are bold. Regina Thomasauer, she does Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, which sounds a little bit silly, but it's not. It's a very deep transformational program. She teaches outrageousness and she models it. It's great practice to do something bold, do something outrageous, because that's our prerogative and our power too, to be bold. So that's one thing. Take action, take the action and let go of the outcome. And that ties in with what I just said about the day. Maybe the day is never going to come when we know that it's actually going to we could trust that it's going to be okay, but we can't quite see how it's all going to be okay, right? And we can't quite plan it all to be okay. So we're going to have to take action and let go of that and trust that maybe something even better than what I could have imagined is going to unfold. I feel like that might be happening for me here in Puerto Viejo Like what I'm starting to create is different than what I thought I was going to create down here. So, I didn't know, but I just knew that my intuition was telling me, just do it, girl. Go to Costa Rica, get with the sea, get with the palm trees and see what happens. Um, and then this is one of my favorite mottos. If not now, when? Am I going to wait till I'm 80? That's my addendum to it. Come on. Am I going to wait till I'm 80? And of course, this is an old favorite. I'm saying these simple slogans because you can remember these, in those moments. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Courage is not absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Sometimes we have to cut our way through the jungle. Just keep cutting. Just keep cutting. Here's another one that I like. I don't know. I don't remember which teacher said this, but you know, A is hard and B is hard. Which one do you choose? Divorce is hard and being in a miserable sick marriage is hard. Which one are you going to choose? I'm not saying everybody ought to get a divorce, but those of you who have been in that situation know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And also, here's a fun one. Fear and anxiety, they say, are experienced quite similar in the body, in the nervous system to excitement. Kind of like that roller coaster. Have you ever taken one of those insane roller coasters, like especially the ones that go backwards downhill and then upside down? How did you feel before when you were in the car at the top? Just butterflies, like, what the hell am I doing up here? And yet you wanted to do this thing and you're doing it. So maybe the fear and the anxiety are just a little bit similar to the excitement and the jitters before something big. I like that one too. What have you done? One more for the chat box. What have you done that you were scared of, or for your journal? What have you done that you were scared of and you did it anyway, and you're glad you did it? Let's remember that one. So there you have it. Those are the 7 keys to freedom for women as they stand now. 7 is kind of a magic number for me, so I decided to stop at 7. And as you can see, there's so much more to each of these to be unpacked. We can do class upon class on each of those, and everyone have stories to share and wisdom to share.